Hey guys, before we begin tonight's story, I have a quiet little request. Tell me, where are you watching from? What time is it where you are right now? What kind of night surrounds you? Are you lying in bed, lights off, headphones in? Are you wrapped in blankets, eyes already half closed? Maybe you're somewhere quiet, just trying to slow your mind down. Wherever you are, you're not alone. And maybe, just maybe, someone scrolling through the comments later will feel a little less lonely because they saw your little light left behind. So drop a heart, a city, a time, or just a word. Then take a breath and let it go, because tonight we're going underground. We're about to explore something hidden, something ancient, something alive, but almost no one hears it. The secret language of trees beneath the soil. Not the rustling leaves above, but the quiet intelligence below. The roots, the fungi, the electric whispers traveling through earth, like memory. This story isn't a lecture. It's not even really a lesson. It's a slow drift through the quiet forest floor, a place where trees talk, share, and remember, even in total silence. So dim the lights. Let your mind grow quiet, and let's begin in the softest part of the forest, the place where roots reach out, and life speaks without words. You lie beneath an ancient tree, its trunk wide as a doorway to another time. The bark under your fingertips is rough, but warm, like the skin of something living, something wise. Above, its branches rise like arms cradling the sky, but your focus rests on what lies below. Beneath your body, beneath the fallen leaves and crumbling twigs, there is a world you cannot see, yet you can feel it, faint and low, like a heartbeat under the earth. The roots stretch downward, not as cold columns of support, but as quiet messengers. They reach into the dark soil like tendrils of thought, like stories unraveling through layers of time. You imagine them curling around stones older than memory, brushing gently against other roots, other lives. There is no rush down here, only patience, only knowing. You close your eyes and let the weight of the forest rest around you. The air is thick, with the scent of damp wood and moss. You inhale slowly, a breath that feels shared, as though the trees are breathing with you, not above you. You are not lying on the forest floor, you are lying within it. A single leaf flutters down and lands near your shoulder. Its descent is unremarkable, yet it feels like a signal. Something is about to begin, not loudly, but like a ripple through still water. The soil beneath you hums with life, though you hear no sound. It is not noise but presence, not a voice but intention. This is not the kind of language you speak with your mouth. It's the kind you speak with your skin, with your stillness. The trees, you begin to realize, are not just standing, they are listening. Each root acts as a finger pressed lightly against the pulse of the world. The roots are tuned, like delicate instruments, to moisture, to movement, to the invisible trails of minerals. When the rain falls, the trees feel it before the drops ever touch their leaves. When a creature steps nearby, even the smallest vibrations travel downward, winding their way through loam and gravel until they tap gently on the door of the root. The tree answers, not in words but in action, a tilt, a stretch, a shift of cells. There is wisdom here, older than cities, older than fire. You begin to imagine what the forest might know, not in facts but in feelings, in instincts carried forward by the soil, season after season. You open your eyes again and glance toward the other trees. You wonder, do they speak to one another? And if so, what do they say? A gust of wind trembles the canopy above you. The leaves shiver, 1,000 green hands waving in concert. But it is not the leaves that answer your question. It is the earth beneath you, deep within the roots, beneath the bark. A slow language pulses. It doesn't rise in pitch or rush to explain. It simply is. A steady murmur of shared presence, like a room where no one talks, yet everyone understands. Trees do not compete the way we do. They do not shout for space or argue over light. They whisper, they wait. You imagine one tree leaning its roots toward another, like a friend drawing closer, not to dominate, but to share. There is water here, it might say. There is danger there. These messages travel not in sound, but in sugars, in signals, molecules shaped like questions and answers, passed from one root to the next. You picture this network as a tapestry beneath the forest, woven in the dark, alive, changing, invisible. A single root might travel meters, a single tree might touch dozens of neighbors. The quiet web of connection stretches farther than you can guess, deeper than your body can feel, and beneath even that, there is more, thinned, translucent threads that aren't roots at all, something older, stranger. But that comes later. You shift slightly and rest your palm against the dirt. It's warm, the temperature of something living. You feel a sudden tenderness toward it, not just as earth, but as a body holding memory, a resting place for fallen trees, for rainwater, for seeds not yet born. You imagine all the moments that have passed through this patch of soil, and all the whispers still buried in its folds. This isn't just a forest floor, it's a cradle of communication, a place where stories flow not in lines, but in circles, where nothing stands alone, where everything is touched eventually by everything else. You begin to realize something quietly profound. The forest does not keep time the way you do. It does not rush. It does not count. It responds. It adapts. It waits for what it needs. And when the moment comes, it moves slowly, surely, without doubt. Your breath mirrors this rhythm now. Slower, deeper, as if you're sinking not just your lungs, but your thoughts to something vast. The forest doesn't speak the way we understand speech, but it feels and it remembers, and in its own way, it answers. A bird calls in the distance, but the sound barely touches you. You are listening now with a different part of yourself, the part that knows silence can speak, and stillness can echo. You lie there, quiet as the roots below, wondering, if the trees whisper, who do they whisper to? And as you ask, the hum in the soil deepens, not louder but closer. There is something moving there, something even older than the tree you rest beneath. Something thread-like, delicate and wise. You do not yet know its name, but you will. Beneath your spine, under the cradle of earth and root, something thinner stirs. Not a root, not quite alive in the way animals are, yet not dead either. It lives in the in-between, in shadows, in silence, in softness. This is the mycelium, and it is everywhere. You might never have seen it with your eyes. It hides under fallen leaves and in the folds of damp logs, white and gossamer, like spilled thread. But when you press your body to the ground, you are closer to it than your own heartbeat. The forest, it turns out, has veins, and they belong to the fungi. Mycelium is not a single thing, but a network, a living map, branching through the earth like thought through a mind. These threads, finer than any hair, connect trees, plants, shrubs, and even insects in a silent underground conversation. Where your internet runs on cables and light, the forest's web pulses with moisture, minerals, and memory. The fungi do not speak, but they transmit. They do not bloom in sunlight. They flourish in decay. Where one sees rot, the mycelium sees possibility. Every fallen leaf, every broken twig, every bit of bark crumbling into dust. It is not waste. It is invitation. The mycelium winds itself into the forgotten and transforms it. This is the currency of the fungal world. Not destruction, but renewal. As you lie there, your skin seems to sense it, something brushing just beneath, like a whisper not to your ears but to your bones. It's easy to imagine, just for a moment, that the mycelium is listening, not with ears but with touch. Every contact point, root, stone, water droplet, is part of its body. It feels the trees. It feels you. Scientists call it the wood wide web. But that phrase, though clever, feels too modern for something so ancient. The mycelium predates forests. It predates flowers. It might even have been one of the first organisms to crawl from water onto land. Long before the trees spoke through roots, the fungi were there, listening, waiting, learning the shape of soil and time. And when the trees did arrive, mycelium welcomed them like an old friend. In return for sugar from the tree's photosynthesis, the fungi offered minerals gathered from deep, unreachable places. Like two hands in a quiet exchange, they built something symbiotic, a partnership beneath the surface. You imagine the fungi ferrying messages through the forest, chemical pulses carried from tree to tree. One sapling needs nitrogen, another is wounded by beetles. The mother tree, large and old, sends warnings, sends comfort. But it is the fungi that deliver it. They are the postmen of the forest, the silent translators of distress. What if you could walk through this network, not above it, but inside it? You picture it now, tunnels of glowing threads beneath the forest floor, each pulse of information like a heartbeat of light. You walk carefully through it, your steps echoing through the system. Every move is recorded, not by surveillance, but by memory embedded in mycelial touch. You are not observed. You are known. The beauty of the mycelium is in its humility. It does not grow tall. It does not blossom. It does not seek the sky. It spreads through stillness, through dampness, through the unnoticed corners of the world. And yet it holds the forest together. Fungi can sense damage. They can redirect flows. They can block pathogens, and astonishingly, they can remember, not in the way humans do, with stories and songs, but biologically. When exposed to threats, the mycelium alters itself, builds resistance, learns patterns, remembers danger. This is not just a network. It is a brain without a skull, a pulse without a heart. And unlike anything you've known, it never sleeps. It is active at night, just as much as by day. While you rest, the mycelium weaves, it collects, it decomposes the dead, and feeds the living. It is the quiet hand, rearranging the puzzle pieces of life. Even now, as you lie there, the mycelium is moving beneath you, slowly, purposefully, not in straight lines, but in spirals and starbursts, seeking, always seeking. It does not need eyes to find. It does not need ears to hear. It touches, and that is enough. You imagine reaching your hand into the soil and feeling a thread soft, cool, almost electric. Would it feel you back? Would it recognize you as part of the system? Or would it pause, wondering if your warmth meant danger? And then another thought comes, drifting gently like fog. What if human thought has always been a little fungal? What if networks, connections, and quiet memory were never inventions, but imitations? The mycelium teaches through example, not competition, but collaboration, not power but process. Its success is not in standing out, but in blending in so well it becomes invisible. And yet, it is everywhere. Your toes curl slightly into the forest floor. You begin to sense how vast this network is. One patch of fungi beneath a single tree can span acres. In a Canadian forest, scientists found one colony that covered over 2,000 acres, thousands of years old, older than any city, quietly thriving, simply by staying connected. You lie still. You wonder, is this what wisdom looks like? Not a voice raised high, but a presence that stretches endlessly, listening. Above you the wind shakes the trees, but below nothing trembles. The mycelium holds firm. It is the net beneath the fall, the keeper of balance, the first responder, the last recycler. In time, even this very tree, the one you lie beneath, will fall. Its bark will rot. Its heartwood will splinter. Its memory will seep into the soil, and the mycelium will be there to carry it away, not in mourning, but in continuity. For in the language of the forest, there is no end, only exchange, only return, and beneath all of it, the roots, the rot, the hush of time, something waits, pulsing, patient. But this pulse is more than structure, it is relationship. And within that relationship, something else begins to grow, something shaped like a touch, something shaped like trust. Your body remains still, but your mind moves downward, not falling, but extending, reaching into the dark with new awareness. What once seemed solid now feels delicate, filled with silent motion. Beneath the forest floor, roots stretch in every direction. But they are not simply anchors. They are the fingers of the forest, gently seeking, gently speaking. Roots do not grow blindly. They feel, they brush against one another with cautious intent, curl around stones with quiet patience, and when they meet the roots of another tree, especially akin, they pause, they press, they connect. You imagine these touches like tiny handshakes in the soil, not rushed, not forced. Slow introductions between beings that have stood side by side for decades, centuries even, but only now, exchange their first greeting beneath the earth. And through these connections, a conversation begins. It is not a conversation of words. There are no sentences, no language as we know it, but there are signals, chemical whispers passed through soil and sap. There is meaning in the shape of a molecule, in the pattern of its release. One root sends out a signal of drought. Another responds with stored moisture. One detects the subtle fingerprint of a parasite. Another passes along a warning, and with it, instructions for defense. You realize now, every root in this forest is listening, and many are also responding. The roots of trees once seemed to you like plumbing, dull, necessary, invisible, but now they shimmer in your imagination like glowing veins of thought. They do not sleep, they do not wait passively. They explore, they communicate, they care. Some trees, when their own offspring grow nearby, will extend their roots around the young, like a protective fence, sharing water, shielding them from toxic signals. Others may cut off connection with invasive species, redirecting resources away, like a door closing softly in the dark. Even in the coldest months, when all above-ground life appears still, roots continue their work below. They remember the shape of the last winter. They track the salt of the rain. They calculate when it is safe to begin again. There is intelligence here, but it wears no face, carries no brain. It is a quiet intelligence, shaped not by speed but by presence, by being still long enough to learn what changes, and what doesn't, by letting the silence grow deep enough to become language. You imagine lying even closer now, sinking beneath the leaves, into the loam, surrounded by these roots, as if they were limbs of some ancient, slow-moving creature, each one brushing against another with intention, each one listening for a signal. And suddenly, something strikes you, not as thought, but as understanding. If trees can feel the presence of others, if they can share and send, warn and receive, then perhaps loneliness is not their natural state. Perhaps every tree in a forest is part of a single sentence, and every root is a word shaped by the soil it moves through. The forest becomes a book you were never taught to read, a page turned not by wind, but by time, a story shared not for entertainment, but for survival. You remember that phrase, the language of trees. It seemed poetic once, now it feels literal. Through volatile compounds and electrical impulses, through the acidity of the soil, through slow shifts in root pressure and flow, trees tell one another things you could never say aloud. A dying tree might send its last sugar to a neighbor. A parent tree might keep feeding a broken sapling long after its leaves have withered. A grove might circle around a stump, long dead above the ground, and still feed its roots, not because they must, but because they remember. You begin to wonder, if humans had such roots, would we listen with more care? Would we understand the value of silence, of shared presence? Because in the root world, there are no speeches, only response, only slow, quiet gestures in the dark. Even a root's retreat is a form of communication. It says there is danger here. It says I am not welcome. And in time the forest adjusts. You lie there now with reverence, not as a visitor, but as a witness. The roots beneath you are not passive. They are social. They are relational. They are holding one another, and holding space for each other. In a world where so much depends on what is visible, this network of unseen touch carries a weight beyond measure. It reminds you that sometimes the most powerful messages are the ones felt through the skin and the soil, the ones never spoken at all. And as this thought settles softly in your chest, you begin to sense that these connections go even deeper. There is something else moving among the roots. Not wood, not leaf, something stranger, older, more intricate. You don't have its name yet, but you've already met its threat. You once thought of forests as collections of trees, tall and silent, each standing for itself, competing for light, for space, for life. But now, as you sink deeper into the hush beneath the canopy, you begin to see it differently. Not as competition, but community. Not as isolation, but intimacy. Here, trees do not simply grow, they raise one another. Beneath your resting body, beneath the tangle of roots and mycelia lace, a pattern emerges, one not visible from above. It is a pattern of care, of kinship. A forest is not a crowd, it is a family. At the center of many families stands the mother tree. She is the tallest in the grove, the one who has weathered 1,000 storms, the one whose roots have grown wide and deep. Not to dominate, but to connect. Her crown spreads wide, not only to gather light, but to shelter. Her trunk, thick with years, is hollowed by time, but strong with memory. Through the mycelial threads, she sends carbon, nitrogen, and chemical messages to saplings below. If her own offspring are growing in her shadow, she recognizes them. Their roots brush hers, and something ancient stirs, a memory of her own beginning, perhaps. She shares more with them, not equally, not blindly, but with purpose. You imagine this act not as science, but as lullaby, a song of molecules, passed root to root, a melody of sugars and signals, flowing not with urgency, but with love. The young trees, still fragile, receive what they need, not only nutrients, but guidance, when to grow, when to slow, when danger whispers through the fungal net, and when winter edges close. In return, the mother tree asks for nothing. Her giving is instinctive, not sentimental, but deeply biological. She has survived long enough to understand that her strength is not in her own survival, but in what continues after her. And sometimes, even in death, she continues to give. Scientists have found that dying mother trees, in their final seasons, send vast amounts of nutrients to nearby kin. A final bequest, a forest will to those who remain. Even the stump of a once mighty tree, long severed from sky and sun, may still be kept alive by its neighbors, its roots fed by others. Simply because they remember, this is not a myth, this is not metaphor, this is ecology woven with emotion. Not the emotion of the human kind, but the deep generational pulse of cooperation, coded into living systems. As you breathe slowly, you wonder, what does it feel like to be a mother tree? To send gifts without words, to know that the lives around you are shaped by your hidden generosity. Perhaps there is no feeling at all, only doing, only responding as the soil teaches you to respond, only reaching as your roots whisper the shape of the world around you. You sense now that the forest is full of these connections, not just vertical, but radial, not just between trees of the same kind, but across species, age, and distance. There are elders who share with the young, strangers who exchange signals. Even trees of different species, once thought to compete, are now known to share. The rules are more flexible than once believed. The forest, it turns out, values relationship above rank. And yet it is not a utopia. There are boundaries. There are trees that hoard, that disconnect, that refuse to share. There are parasites, plants that draw from others without return. There is loss and imbalance and silence where once there was touch. But even in that silence the forest waits, because care is not just a moment, it is a system, and systems can rebuild. You picture a young sapling growing under the shadow of her mother. The sunlight barely reaches her leaves. She stretches but slowly. Her growth is careful, not rushed. She doesn't yet know how to be a tree, but the network below remembers for her. It tells her when to open her stomata. It tells her when the water will run deep. It tells her when danger walks nearby. The footfall of a deer, the heat of fire, the breath of drought. And if her mother falls, if lightning splits her crown, or rot hollows her core, the sapling still listens. Because the roots remain, because the network remembers, and in time that young tree may become a mother too. She will send her sugars, she will hum her molecular lullabies, she will teach the dark how to hold the light, all without moving, all without speaking, all beneath the soil, where language turns to action. You begin to wonder what a forest sees when it looks at itself. Not trees, not species, but relationships. The web, not the strand. The message, not the sender. You see it now clearly, gently. The forest is not a place. It is a conversation. And in this conversation, the mother tree does not lead with dominance, but with devotion. Her roots do not compete. They embrace, they nurture, they wait. Your breath slows again, deepening. You feel held by something ancient and slow, not watched but included. The forest does not ask you to speak. It simply asks you to listen. Above, the leaves shift with wind. Below, the roots remain steady. The lullaby continues, and as you lie there in the hush between growth and decay, you feel the pulse of something vast and kind. The trees are not alone, neither are you, yet even in this harmony, even in this quiet exchange of care, there is more happening beneath the soil, more signals, more strategies, more ways of warning and preparing and responding, because love in a forest doesn't mean safety, it means awareness, and when danger whispers, the roots must carry the message. You once thought of forests as collections of trees, tall and silent, each standing for itself, competing for light, for space, for life. But now, as you sink deeper into the hush beneath the canopy, you begin to see it differently. Not as competition, but community. Not as isolation, but intimacy. Here, trees do not simply grow, they raise one another. Beneath your resting body, beneath the tangle of roots and mycelia lace, a pattern emerges, one not visible from above. It is a pattern of care, of kinship. A forest is not a crowd, it is a family. At the center of many families stands the mother tree. She is the tallest in the grove, the one who has weathered 1,000 storms, the one whose roots have grown wide and deep. Not to dominate, but to connect. Her crown spreads wide, not only to gather light, but to shelter. Her trunk, thick with years, is hollowed by time, but strong with memory. Through the mycelial threads, she sends carbon, nitrogen, and chemical messages to saplings below. If her own offspring are growing in her shadow, she recognizes them. Their roots brush hers, and something ancient stirs, a memory of her own beginning, perhaps. She shares more with them, not equally, not blindly, but with purpose. You imagine this act not as science, but as lullaby, a song of molecules, passed root to root, a melody of sugars and signals, flowing not with urgency, but with love. The young trees, still fragile, receive what they need, not only nutrients, but guidance, when to grow, when to slow, when danger whispers through the fungal net, and when winter edges close. In return, the mother tree asks for nothing. Her giving is instinctive, not sentimental, but deeply biological. She has survived long enough to understand that her strength is not in her own survival, but in what continues after her. And sometimes, even in death, she continues to give. Scientists have found that dying mother trees, in their final seasons, send vast amounts of nutrients to nearby kin. A final bequest, a forest will to those who remain. Even the stump of a once mighty tree, long severed from sky and sun, may still be kept alive by its neighbors, its roots fed by others. Simply because they remember, this is not a myth, this is not metaphor, this is ecology woven with emotion. Not the emotion of the humankind, but the deep generational pulse of cooperation, coded into living systems. As you breathe slowly, you wonder, what does it feel like to be a mother tree? To send gifts without words, to know that the lives around you are shaped by your hidden generosity. Perhaps there is no feeling at all, only doing, only responding, as the soil teaches you to respond, only reaching, as your roots whisper the shape of the world around you. You sense now that the forest is full of these connections, not just vertical, but radial, not just between trees of the same kind, but across species, age, and distance. There are elders who share with the young, strangers who exchange signals. Even trees of different species, once thought to compete, are now known to share. The rules are more flexible than once believed. The forest, it turns out, values relationship above rank. And yet it is not a utopia. There are boundaries. There are trees that hoard, that disconnect, that refuse to share. There are parasites, plants that draw from others, without return. There is loss, and imbalance, and silence where once there was touch. But even in that silence, the forest waits. Because care is not just a moment, it is a system. And systems can rebuild. You picture a young sapling growing under the shadow of her mother. The sunlight barely reaches her leaves. She stretches but slowly. Her growth is careful, not rushed. She doesn't yet know how to be a tree, but the network below remembers for her. It tells her when to open her stomata. It tells her when the water will run deep. It tells her when danger walks nearby. The footfall of a deer, the heat of fire, the breath of drought. And if her mother falls, if lightning splits her crown, or rot hollows her core, the sapling still listens. Because the roots remain, because the network remembers, and in time that young tree may become a mother too. She will send her sugars, she will hum her molecular lullabies, she will teach the dark how to hold the light, all without moving, all without speaking, all beneath the soil, where language turns to action. You begin to wonder what a forest sees when it looks at itself. Not trees, not species, but relationships. The web, not the strand. The message, not the sender. You see it now clearly, gently. The forest is not a place. It is a conversation. And in this conversation, the mother tree does not lead with dominance, but with devotion. Her roots do not compete. They embrace, they nurture, they wait. Your breath slows again, deepening. You feel held by something ancient and slow, not watched but included. The forest does not ask you to speak. It simply asks you to listen. Above, the leaves shift with wind. Below, the roots remain steady. The lullaby continues, and as you lie there in the hush between growth and decay, you feel the pulse of something vast and kind. The trees are not alone, neither are you, yet even in this harmony, even in this quiet exchange of care, there is more happening beneath the soil, more signals, more strategies, more ways of warning and preparing and responding, because love in a forest doesn't mean safety, it means awareness, and when danger whispers, the roots must carry the message. The forest is not always quiet. Sometimes the silence stirs, not with sound, but with signal. A breeze lifts the leaves above your resting body. The wind smells sweet, like pine and dust. But beneath that sweetness, something else moves. Unseen, unheard, not in the branches, but in the roots and in the spaces between. Imagine, for a moment, a tree being bitten. A single caterpillar lands on a leaf and takes a bite, small, mindless, innocent. But within seconds, the tree knows. The wound is more than a cut. It is a call. The cells around the damage respond immediately, not with pain, exactly, but with purpose. Chemical messages begin forming. Tiny molecules crafted in urgency. They ride the wind through the air, warning nearby trees. Something is feeding. Be ready. Above ground, this is the language of scent. Volatile compounds, released in invisible puffs, that drift leaf to leaf, like warnings written in perfume. But underground, another kind of alarm sound. The roots of the bitten tree send a signal into the soil, passed along by mycelial threads, received by nearby trees as something like a whisper in the dark. The message is clear. Something is wrong. And the neighbors, they listen. They begin to change. Leaves toughen. Toxins rise. Some trees flood their bark with bitter chemicals, enough to make an insect reconsider. And the caterpillar, unaware that it has triggered a forest-wide alarm system, simply chews. But it will not chew for long, because the forest does not fight with teeth or claws. It defends with knowledge, passed swiftly, silently, through touch, through air, through soil. You lie very still, imagining it happen now, beneath you. The bitten tree's roots tingle with the signal. The mycelium picks it up, like a switchboard operator in a great underground hall, and within moments, dozens of trees adjust. No panic, no chaos, only coordination. This is not a nervous system, but it functions like one. Information moves, responses trigger, and memory settles into bark and branch. Even trees that are not related, different species, different ages, may share this warning. The forest does not ask for loyalty, it rewards awareness. Some trees even go a step further. They store these warning signals in their tissue. They remember which insects have attacked in seasons past. They prepare earlier the next time. You begin to sense just how alive the forest is, not in the noisy way of birdsong or rustling leaves, but in the network of responsive. Here, the community is not made of friendship, but of attention. Each tree keeps an eye, not through vision, but through vibration, scent, and chemical exchange. Even the soil shifts underfoot when the system is on alert. Roots move, fungi tighten their grip, moisture flows differently. It is as though the entire forest holds its breath, waiting for the danger to pass. And when it does, when the biting stops, when the caterpillar becomes a moth and leaves, the system does not simply forget. Some messages remain, embedded, archived. A scar becomes a story, and the next time, the same scent rides the wind, a molecule left behind by the same insect, or one like it. The trees do not wait to react, they act before the bite. You rest your hand on the soil beside you, and wonder how many alarms have passed, through this very patch. How many times has the ground responded, not with violence, but with signal? It is a kind of quiet strength, not about conquest, but connection. A forest survives, not by being impenetrable, but by being aware, by listening more closely than anything above the ground ever could. You close your eyes and feel your own skin, sensitive, alert, warm, and for a moment, you imagine having roots of your own. What would you hear? Would you sense a friend's worry in the soil beside you? Would you know when someone nearby was hurting? Would you send part of yourself to comfort them? Not in words, but in presence. Perhaps trees do just that. Perhaps their warnings are not only of danger, but of care. A way of saying, I am here. I have felt this too. You are not alone. And as the signals fade, as calm returns to the fungal net, and the scent of danger lifts from the breeze, you sense a stillness settling over the roots. Not the stillness of silence, but the stillness of safety, of awareness, rebalanced. The forest does not forget, it waits, and beneath your resting body, the soil holds a new kind of peace, not because there is no threat, but because the network is ready. Even now, the night deepens, and the roots do not rest. They listen, because beneath every tree, beneath even the quietest one, there is always someone paying attention.
Night has fallen, but the forest does not sleep. You lie quietly, watching the last threads of light disappear behind the trees. Above, the sky softens from deep blue to velvet black. Stars emerge like old friends returning. The breeze slows, insects hush, and all around you, the visible world seems to settle. But below the bark and beneath the soil, something stirs. You've always imagined trees as still, as statues dressed in leaves. But now, in the hush of night, you begin to sense motion, not the kind you can see, but the kind you can feel, like breath beneath a blanket. Trees shift in darkness. Their stomata, tiny pores on the underside of leaves, open wider at night. They drink in oxygen. They release moisture. They whisper softly into the air with every breath they take. Beneath the bark, water begins its slow ascent again, pulled upward through xylem vessels like blood through capillaries. It doesn't rush, it glides. Even in the darkness, trees must hydrate. Their cells swell gently. Their fibers loosen. The tree becomes more pliable in the cool air, more open to repair. The roots too are active now. Free from the intense heat of day, they expand farther into the soil, reaching deeper, testing new cracks in the earth. They find old pathways left behind by worms or fallen leaves, and gently follow them. This is not wandering. It is exploration, guided, purposeful, patient. You imagine their movement like fingers feeling in the dark, searching not just for water but for meaning. All around you, a silent orchestra plays. Enzymes activate, proteins shift, ions spark, chemical messages continue their flow, unchecked by the absence of sun. This is the forest's other rhythm, not the photosynthetic pulse of daylight, but the subterranean hum of nighttime repair. In the darkness, trees heal. Wounds seal slowly under bark, microfractures close. Fungal partners continue to deliver nutrients, even when no sugar is being made. It is a sacred kind of work, the kind done in silence, in solitude, in shadow. The forest does not fear the night, it needs it. For it is in the dark that balance returns, heat lifts from the soil, the frantic buzzing of the day fades, and what was damaged begins to mend. You feel your own breath slowing. Your own body too knows this rhythm. This cycle of day into night, effort into rest, light into repair. The same enzymes that heal the leaves also work in your skin. The same cellular wisdom that guides roots into soil, guides your own body through sleep. Perhaps this is why you feel comforted here. Not because the forest is quiet, but because it understands you, not in mind, but in rhythm. There's something profoundly reassuring about knowing that trees do not stop when the sun sets. They simply change pace, adjust direction, shift from growth to reflection. And it's not just the trees. The mycelium beneath you is most active now. Darkness suits it. Cool temperatures keep it hydrated, keep it spread. Tiny pulses of information and nutrient exchange ripple through the fungal threads like lanterns lit beneath the earth. A map drawn in warmth and chemistry, one you cannot see, but are beginning to feel. You imagine these pulses moving beneath your body now. Soft, subtle, steady. A tree to your left sends water to one farther away. A fallen branch releases its minerals into the soil. A young sapling begins to receive nitrogen from an older root it's never met. This is what happens when the lights go out above. The forest becomes more connected, more curious, more alive. Even the animals respond. Some roots release chemicals that deter nighttime grazers, scents that waft into the dark like a warning. Others hold tightly to their sugars, locking them away until the sun rises again. It is not fear, it is strategy. The forest knows that night is not a pause. It is a different kind of activity, quieter, but no less vital. And you, lying still beneath the canopy, feel yourself drawn into this rhythm. Your breath mirrors the slow draw of xylem. Your heartbeat, quiet now, matches the gentle stretch of roots into earth. This is not sleep. This is something deeper. A kind of belonging. Even the stars seem to listen. They do not blink. They watch. And the trees, their tops touching starlight, continue their unseen work. You imagine bark stretching, like the slow exhale of something ancient. You imagine sap flowing upward, steady as prayer. You imagine cells dividing, not with urgency but with grace. Because in the forest there is time. Time to grow, time to heal, time to wait, time to know what's needed before moving again. And as your eyes grow heavier, as your limbs soften into the shape of the soil, you begin to wonder what other symphonies play in the dark. What other systems rise when the world above sleeps? What messages pass from root to root that we have never heard?
As the forest settles deeper into night, you begin to sense something even quieter than the stillness, a soft, invisible giving, a kind of generosity that doesn't ask to be seen, a system of exchange so ancient it no longer needs applause. This is the forest's quiet economy, but it does not use coins. It does not track with ledgers. Its wealth is not counted. It is shared. And the currency, nutrients, not just food, but survival. Not just elements, but memory. Beneath you, in the web of roots and fungal threads, a symphony plays slow and constant. Molecules move with purpose. Calcium travels like a note, phosphorus like a beat, nitrogen like a breath passed from tree to tree. It's easy to imagine this world of nutrients as static, atoms waiting passively in the dirt, to be stumbled upon and absorbed. But it's not like that at all. The forest delivers what's needed, deliberately, elegantly, precisely. Fungi, through their mycelium networks, are the great couriers. They thread their way between trees, sensing who has extra, who is in need, who is young, who is healing. They move nutrients like caretakers, moving blankets, laying them gently where warmth is needed most. This is not charity, it is design. Trees in return send sugar, fresh from the alchemy of sunlight, packaged in their roots, dripped into the waiting hands of fungi. In this way, the system feeds itself. It listens, it responds, it balances. You picture it now, a great underground marketplace, but with no shouting, no trading, no greed, just presence. The presence of carbon here, the presence of potassium there, the knowledge of where to send them, not dictated by profit, but by relationship. Some trees, rich in light, send more sugar than they use. Some fungi, vast and sprawling, touch dozens of root systems at once, acting as central hubs, equalizing abundance. And yes, some trees receive more than they give. A struggling sapling, a shaded understory plant, a wounded elder. But the forest does not punish the weak. It feeds them. It waits for them. Because the strength of a forest is not found in one tree, but in all of them, together. Even decay becomes part of the cycle. When a leaf falls, it does not disappear. It becomes. Its edges curl, its stem crumbles, its tissue turns to mush. And the fungi arrive, hungry, gentle, ancient. They break it down, cell by cell, sugar by sugar, and soon, that same leaf flows through the soil, into the roots of another tree. One life becomes many, one end becomes beginning. You feel the weight of this, not as sorrow, but as rhythm. Even in your own body, the minerals that allow you to lie still, to breathe, to remember, were once part of mountains, or oceans, or perhaps a tree. You are already part of the cycle. The same nitrogen that helped a fern grow on the forest floor now rests in your muscles. The same carbon carried through a maple's xylem once moved through your lungs. The forest is not separate from you. It is with you, in you. And as you lie beneath the soil's quiet breath, you realize that nutrients do not just feed life. They connect it. They carry memory, not of moments, but of matter. A root absorbs phosphorus that once danced in the wing of a bird. A seed drinks water that once shimmered in the veins of a dinosaur. A tree grows from compost that once was a grandmother's garden. Everything returns, everything flows, and still, there is no rush. The symphony plays at a tempo so slow, you could miss it if you looked with only your eyes. But when you feel it, with your breath, with your skin, with the soft awareness that comes only in quiet places, you begin to understand this is not just science, it is choreography. The forest moves like dancers who know each other's steps, who trust the music even when the stage is invisible. Fungi weave between roots, like musicians tuning strings. Trees lean toward each other in hunger or fullness. The soil shifts and opens and swells, and the cycle continues. Even now, as you lie in stillness, the elements within you are shifting too. Your blood carries iron that once rested in stone. Your breath exhales carbon that will feed a leaf. Your skin sheds cells that may someday become soil. You too are a note in the symphony, small, essential, beautiful. And the forest does not forget your part. It will take what you give, it will offer what you need. And when the time comes, it will return you, not in loss, but in harmony. The night deepens, the mycelium hums, the roots stretch, satisfied. But not all is peace, not all is balance. Sometimes the system breaks, the network burns, the harmony is lost, at least for a while. And when that happens, when fire sweeps through the forest, or rot sets in, or drought starves the soil, even then, the story continues. The forest forgets nothing. You lie still, eyes closed, breath slow, but beneath your body, beneath bark and root and dust, stories press upward, not spoken, not written, but stored in rings, in cells, in the tilt of a branch, in the soil itself. Every tree you see is an arc, every root a witness, every fallen leaf a bookmark in a story far longer than your own. Memory lives here, not in minds, but in matter. A tree does not recall the past the way you do. It does not dream of it. It does not miss it. It becomes it. In its wood are years of silence and fire, each ring a line of Ed, a narrow ring, a dry summer, a wide ring, a season of rain and plenty. You could take a cross-section of a single tree and read its life like a scroll. Here the year lightning struck. Here the long hunger after disease. Here a time of growth. After death nearby made the soil rich. The tree remembers everything it survives, and the memory is not for itself alone. It is for the forest, because roots do more than seek water. They carry the past. They remember where the soil once cracked with drought. They avoid the chemical scars of past battles. They follow trails left behind by ancestors. They know where not to grow. You begin to wonder what the tree beneath you has felt, what century it was born into, what winters froze its bark, what creatures have sheltered in its shade and fed on its fruit. It has no eyes, no ears, no voice. But it has endured, and endurance is its memory. Some trees even pass this memory along. When parent trees release seeds, they often do so with biochemical cues. This is what danger smells like. This is when to bloom. This is how to bend toward light. It's not teaching in the human sense. It's inheritance, not of wealth, but of wisdom. And the forest holds even deeper memories, buried in soil, carried in the slow shifting of land and nutrient. In places where fire once raged, charred remains nourish new growth. Seeds lie dormant for decades, waiting for the exact heat or light they once knew to return. Some plants only bloom after fire, not despite it, because of it. They remember flame like a key turning in a lock. And the fungi, those silent carriers beneath the trees, they remember too. Their networks change shape, depending on who thrives and who falls. They grow denser near wounded roots. They adapt. They rewire. They build resistance. A fungal network that survived a drought is not the same as one that has only known rain. It learns. It keeps that learning alive in the way it grows next time. Even the soil itself carries memory. Not thoughts, but structure. The way it crumbles in your hand, the smell after rain, the tilt of its acidity, all shaped by what's come before. Worms that tilled it, fires that sterilized it, leaves that composted into its depths. You rest your hand on the ground now, and it feels heavier than before, not with weight, but with time. You are lying atop a living library, one that does not speak your language, but holds stories you have always needed. There's a comfort in this. Not all memory must be kept in your head. Some of it belongs to the land. To lie still here is to trust the forest, to remember on your behalf, to know that pain and healing and balance have always cycled through these roots, that the wind that touched your cheek tonight once passed through the leaves of a tree long, that your own body carries minerals that once fed another life, and one day will feed again. There is no forgetting here. There is only transformation. The tree does not erase the scar where a branch broke. It grows around it, incorporates it, protects it. So too with the forest as a whole. It remembers not just what was taken, but what returned. And sometimes even humans are part of that memory. The footprints of ancestors still echo beneath moss. Old stone tools buried deep still shape route direction. Even abandoned roads and forgotten farms leave subtle traces in the soil, guiding growth for centuries to come. The forest does not hold grudges, but it does not forget. You begin to see memory everywhere now, in the leaning of a trunk, in the silence where one species once stood, in the small stubborn sprout growing from the ash of its parent. You wonder what stories your own body would tell if it remembered as deep. What would your hands grow around? What would your bones mark time by? And you wonder too, if we listened more closely to the memory in trees, could we remember better ourselves? Could we learn to grow around what hurt us? To carry it, not as burden, but as shape? The forest, it always does, and though much of it lies hidden beneath soil and bark and shadow, you can feel it now. The memory is alive. It is humming. It is reaching. And sometimes it begins again. A new route, a new shoot, a new possibility rising from something old. But before the forest renews, it must sometimes be broken. Sometimes it must burn. And when the fire comes, the memory changes. It does not vanish. It smoulders, waiting for the chance to grow again. Beneath your back, Beneath the roots, beneath even the thinnest threads of fungi, there is life so small, so silent, so invisible, you've likely never thought of it at all. But it is there. The dirt is alive, not just with roots and rot, but with billions of tiny voices, each one moving, each one changing the forest from below. You imagine soil as static, a brown backdrop, a place for things to grow. But here now, in the stillness of night, you begin to sense it differently. The soil is not a stage. It is the main performer, and the smallest lives in it are the loudest, not in volume, but in consequence. Every handful of soil holds more organisms than there are stars in the sky above you. Bacteria, protozoa, nematodes, microscopic fungi, springtails, mites, beetle larvae, ant tunnels, each one working, moving, building, each one with a role, a rhythm, a task it never questioned. And though you cannot hear them, they are speaking in scent, in acid, in the shape of the tunnels they carve. Bacteria break down the dead, unlocking nutrients trapped in old roots, in fallen leaves, in forgotten feathers. They do not need eyes, they do not need thought, they only need carbon, and in return, they give nitrogen, phosphorus, life. Ants dig their chambers like tiny architects, bringing oxygen deeper the soil, loosening the grip of clay, letting water in. Worms leave behind trails lined with rich castings, tiny corridors of rebirth. They do not know they are farmers, but they are. The forest owes its softness to them, its sponge-like floor, its depth, its ability to catch rain, to cradle seeds, to welcome roots. These creatures are not decoration, they are foundation. And you, lying still with your cheek against the earth, begin to realize that the forest above is only half the story. The true work is done below, not just by trees and fungi, but by the minute, the microscopic, the barely there. Even the air in the soil matters. Tiny pockets of breath, kept open by the tunnels of beetles, or the wiggle of a worm, are essential. Without those gaps, roots suffocate, fungi stall, the entire system slows. And so, with every quiet twitch of a springtail, with every unseen birth of a microbe, the soil remains breathable. The soil remains alive. It's hard to imagine so much life in something you've walked across for years, without thinking, but now, you feel it. You feel the gentle pulse beneath your spine, as though the forest is exhaling through the ground. You picture the soil as a city, not a human one, but a living lattice of passageways and chambers, each home to something fragile and essential. There are alliances here too. Certain bacteria pair with tree roots, forming nodules where nitrogen is shared. Some fungi trade minerals with algae, forming lichen on fallen logs. Bright patches that look like moss, but are entire ecosystems of partnership. It is easy to overlook the small, to think it insignificant. But in the forest, the small is sacred. It holds the entire system together. If the microbes die, the roots starve. If the worms vanish, the soil hardens. If the ants leave, fungus spreads too far. And when the soil dies, nothing grows. Not because the seeds are bad, but because the orchestra has lost its smallest players. And so, the forest listens to the tiny voices. It supports them. It shelters them. Even the falling of leaves, each autumn, is part of this cycle, a gift of food to the unseen. The trees drop their gold not in grief, but in trust, knowing that beneath the frost, the decomposers will come, the cleaners, the renewers, and when spring arrives, the nutrients will rise again, not just because of sunlight, but because the earth beneath has been made ready. You lie there, thinking of your own body, how many small lives live inside you, your skin, your gut, your breath. You too are a system of systems, a forest of cells, a symphony of tiny partnerships. Perhaps that's why this place feels so familiar, even if you've never been here before, because you are made of the same patterns, the same silence, the same slow miracles. The ground shifts gently beneath you, not with motion, but with presence. You feel no footstep, but you feel activity, and you smile, realizing the forest does not sleep. Because the soil never does. Its tiniest workers are always building, breaking down, passing life along. You have not met them,
But they know you, your breath feeds them, your warmth touches them, your stillness lets them work, and as you drift further towards sleep, you sense one more truth rising. Even the smallest voice can hold the weight of the world, even the quietest life can nourish a forest. And sometimes, the grandest beauty begins in places you never thought to look. You smell the smoke before you see it. In your dream, the wind shifts. The sky darkens. The air thickens with the heavy breath of heat. The forest doesn't scream. It doesn't run. It watches. It waits. And when the fire arrives, when the flames leap from tree to tree, turning green to gold, bark to charcoal, roots to cinder, the network goes quiet. The mycelium recoils. The roots withdraw. The animals flee. Even the smallest voices in the soil still themselves. From above, it looks like destruction. Blackened trunks, fallen limbs, ash drifting like snow. But here, lying low, close to the earth, you feel something different. You feel silence, yes, but not emptiness, not absence, not an end. The forest does not die. It transforms. Beneath the ash, beneath the heat-hardened crust of soil, life folds inward. Seeds that have waited years, decades, for this very moment, awaken. Some trees only release their cones in flame. Their resin needs heat to loosen. Their children need the fire to be born. Spores held in tight shells begin to stir. They've lain dormant for generations, waiting for the exact smell of smoke, the exact whisper of ruin, to say, now. This is not a mistake. This is part of the plan. The forest knows how to burn. It has done so many times, and each time, it remembers. Fires clear the old. Fires return nutrients to the surface. Fires break the grip of disease and overcrowding. Fires crack open seeds, sealed too tightly to grow. You think of the mycelium now, once silenced by heat, now cautiously regrowing. It does not rise in triumph. It creeps, gently, softly, thread by thread. It reaches out to the roots that remain, to the seeds now sprouting, to the microbes returning in the soot. The network rewires, rebuilds, learns. And in this way the forest begins again. You imagine standing in the center of this scarred grove, months later, your feet crunching over blackened leaves, your eyes catching the first shoots of green, piercing through the ash. Tiny saplings stretch upward, where mighty trees once stood, not in defiance, in continuation. A fern uncurls like a sleeping fist. Moss returns to the stones, softer than before. Lichen finds its place again, on fallen bark. The forest does not mourn the fire. It absorbs it. It makes it part of the story. It does not pretend it didn't happen. It grows around the memory, grows because of it. And you too feel this truth pressing into your chest. That maybe you have burned in ways others did not see. Maybe you've lost entire seasons of growth. Maybe parts of you turn to ash. Hopes, beliefs, relationships. And you thought the silence meant ending. But it didn't. It meant beginning. Because beneath your own sorrow, beneath the weight of smoke and shadow, something also waited. A seed. A truth that could only awaken after the flames. The forest teaches you this. That destruction is not always violence. Sometimes it is clearing. Sometimes it is space-making. Sometimes you lose what no longer serves you, so that what will can finally root. And the soil remembers, even the burned soil. In fact, it becomes richer, not in spite of what it lost, but because of it. The ash becomes nutrient, the char becomes shelter, the silence becomes listening, and so the network regrows, quieter, slower but wiser. Roots stretch again, fungi reach out once more. The symphony resumes, softly. You imagine the first tree to send a signal through the soil again, after the fire. What does it say? I'm here. Is anyone else alive? And somewhere a tiny root responds, yes. And from that whisper, a chorus begins again. The forest does not fear burning. It fears forgetting how to begin again. But it never forgets. And neither do you.
The night has deepened. The forest, once humming beneath you with quiet movement and hidden voices, now rests in its own rhythm. Not silent, never silent, but slowed. The breeze has softened to a hush, and the stars above are no longer distant points of light. They feel closer, as if listening too. You've listened to the roots. You've felt the threads. You've heard the unspoken stories passed through soil and silence. But now the forest speaks to you, not with a voice, not with words, but with something softer, something older, a kind of knowing that doesn't need to explain itself. You feel it through your skin, the warmth of the soil, the cool pulse of stones beneath. You feel it in your breath, steady, grounded, deeper than before, and you feel it in your chest, that gentle weight, not of burden, but of belonging. The forest is not outside you anymore. It is inside. It has folded itself around your thoughts, wrapped itself into your lungs. You are not a visitor here. You are part of it. And for the first time, maybe in a long time, you believe this. You do not need to prove your place. You do not need to grow taller, faster, louder. You do not need to bloom to be worthy. The forest is full of things that grow slowly, of lives that wait for years before sprouting, of roots that stay hidden forever and still matter. And it tells you, in a way that you feel more than here, you are allowed to move slowly. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to take your time. The tree beside you has stood for decades, and it has never hurried. The mycelium beneath you has stretched for miles, and it has never shouted. The moss across the rocks has grown by softness alone, and it has changed everything it touches. You feel your heartbeat match this rhythm, not the fast beat of urgency, but the slow, steady beat of being. No doing, just being. The forest says, you are not a machine. You are not a task. You are not a measurement of output. You are soil. You are water. You are breath. You are dusk and dawn, and the quiet in between. It reminds you of all the unseen work you do, the healing you've done in silence, the kindness no one noticed, the strength it took to keep growing when no one watched. You've been part of a network too, invisible, maybe, but real. You've held others through words. You've shared light through presence. You've listened when someone needed to be rooted again. You've grown in fire, and after fire, you've bent in wind, and stood back up. And the forest knows, it always knows, because its wisdom doesn't come from perfection. It comes from participation, not from winning, but from remaining present, remaining kind, remaining true to your own quiet growth, even when the world rushes by. So now as you lie beneath this sky, beneath these leaves, beneath the long slow sigh of earth, the forest tells you its final story, that you belong, not because you try, but because you are. You are breath woven from tree exhale. You are warmth shaped by ancient life. You are silence, not as emptiness, but as invitation. You are the one who paused to listen, and that too is part of the forest. Your eyes begin to close now, not from fatigue, but from peace, because you've heard the whispers. You've walked the root lines with your heart. You've learnt to feel the truth beneath the bark. And now you let go. The hum of the soil becomes your lullaby. The fungal threads cradle your thoughts. The leaves above catch your final waking breath. And in that breath, the forest answers, rest now. Grow slowly. You are not alone. You are already home. In the hush of early dawn, you open your eyes beneath the forest canopy and see a tree that should not be standing. Its bark is pale, faded to silver. Its top is broken, jagged like a snapped bone. No leaves, no new buds, just stillness. But it is not gone. This is a ghost tree, and the forest knows it still breathes, just not in the way you understand breath. You sit up slowly, brushing pine needles from your arms, and look closer. Its trunk is hollowed, a silent tower worn through by years of wind and insect. Moss climbs its base. Fungus blooms where sunlight used to touch. It looks dead, but beneath your feet, its roots remain, intertwined, entangled, alive. In the underground web, the ghost tree still speaks. Its roots, though no longer drawing sap to leaf, still conduct information, still touch the fungal threads, still pass along the echoes of presence. In this forest, death is not disappearance. It is change of function. The ghost tree does not provide shade. It provides memory. It remembers wind patterns. It remembers old seasons of fire. It remembers which roots once fed its children, and though no longer green, it holds the network steady, like an elder at the edge of the circle, watching, remembering. You place your palm on the side of its trunk. It feels warm, almost soft, not cold like a tomb, alive like a stone that's seen too many summers to forget heat. Inside, ants trace quiet spirals. A beetle curls into damp wood. A young sapling leans its leaves into the space where the ghost tree once cast shadow. Even in ruin it creates room. Even in stillness it supports life. The forest does not remove its dead. It reassigns them. The ghost trees stand as quiet sentinels. They become ladders for climbing ivy, perches for owls, drums for rats. Sometimes you'll find a living tree, growing from a dead one, a seed fallen into the hollow, fed by rot and rain, stretching upward through the space where its ancestor once reached. The past literally becomes the platform for the future. And beneath the earth, the ghost roots continue send tiny pulses of conductivity, not energy in the way a live tree does, but continuity, a hand still being held. You feel something stir in your chest as you think of your own losses. People, memories, pieces of yourself you thought were gone. But what if they were like this? What if the parts of you that stopped blooming never really vanished? What if their roots remained, quietly shaping your direction? Perhaps you too are a forest of ghost tree, old versions of you. Quiet now, hollow in places, but still supporting new life. You remember moments of pain, not as wounds but as doorways, openings where something younger reached toward the light. The forest shows you this. Death does not sever connection. It deepens it. The fallen feed the standing. The broken shelter the growing. The past becomes structure. Even decay has scaffolding. You begin to notice more of them now. Ghost trees dotting the edges of the path, silent and dignified. None of them in a hurry, none of them in need of attention. Just holding place, anchoring the history of this grove, so the present has something to rest against. And you think again of the fungal threads, how they must pass through these ghost roots, gathering old wisdom, carrying it to the young, not with sentiment, but with purpose. The ghost trees are part of the circuit. They do not glow, they do not bloom, they endure, and in their endurance, they allow the forest to stay whole. Your body softens. There is something deeply comforting about knowing you do not need to be at full bloom to still belong. There is value in resting, in remembering, in offering space instead of shade. The forest says, even when you can no longer grow, you can still give. Even when you are hollow, you are still home to others. Even when the world no longer sees your leaves, you remain connect. You look up. A bird lands on a high branch of the ghost tree. Its weight is light, but the tree does not flinch. It still knows how to hold. You exhale. The sun rises higher. Light passes through the hollow trunk, illuminating the inside like a cathedral. And for a moment, you do not need to fear becoming something silent. Silence has its own kind of echo. The ghost trees are not waiting for rebirth. They are part of what allows rebirth to happen. They are bridges. They are libraries. They are memory made visible. And beneath your resting body, the ghost roots continue to pulse, softly, steadily, as if to say, I'm still here. You still belong. There is still more. Take a slow breath. Let it slip out of you, like a quiet stream. You've done this 1,000 times today. Inhaled, exhaled, forgotten it. But here, in the forest, it feels different. Because the forest breathes with you. You lie beneath the high cathedral of trees, and for the first time, you notice the rhythm of their breath. Not fast, not forced, but fast, and ancient and slow. When you inhale, you are not taking something from the air. You are receiving a gift, oxygen, a silent exhale from every leaf around you, crafted from sunlight and carbon, a molecule that began in the veins of a green thing, and now rests in your lungs. When you exhale, you are not just releasing. You are returning carbon dioxide, born from your cells, your thoughts, your quiet heartbeat, is caught again by a trembling leaf, drawn into a tree's open pores, and turned into sugar, into food, into wood, into bark, into blossom. You and the tree have never spoken, but you have shared breath all day, and you always will. There is no boundary between your breath and the forests. You are part of one slow conversation, unspoken, unseen, but real. Inhale, and let the trees breathe you in. Exhale, and feel yourself become the forest's next breath. This is not poetry, this is biology. Your lungs and a tree's leaves mirror each other. Branching pathways, open chambers, exchanges at the microscopic level. You were shaped by trees long before you understood their names. Even now, you carry their breath inside you. Not metaphorically, but literally. Every cell in your body depends on that oxygen. Every beat of your heart is sponsored by green. You think of trees as still, but they are breathing too. They inhale light. They exhale life. And when you breathe beside them, your body becomes part of that process. Your breath, so small, so invisible, becomes sugar in a root, a blossom in spring, a pine cone pressed tightly shut before rain. You lie back, eyes closed, and feel your ribs rise like branches. You do not need to do anything. You do not need to try. Breathing happens. Connection happens. There is no need to earn it. The air is full of old breaths, from whales and wolves, and ancient redwoods, from your great-grandmother, from the child who ran through this forest, long before it had a name. The breath you take now may once have lived in a butterfly's wing, or a poet's lungs, or the last leaf of a dying oak. And so, each breath is sacred, not because it is rare, but because it is shared. You feel the wind shift. A slow gust weaves between the trunks, and the leaves above rustle, not in chaos, but in response. They open, they receive, they wait, and in that waiting, they offer you peace. You no longer feel like a visitor here. You feel like a lung, one part of a larger breath. You are not outside the system. You are breathing it in, and breathing it forward. Even your sleep tonight will change the forest. Your exhale will drift upward, kiss the underbelly of a maple leaf, slip into a stomata, and become tomorrow's growth. The forest will use it to build a new cell, extend a root, bloom a flower. You are not separate. You are not just walking through. You are participating with every inhale, with every sigh, with every long breath that softens your chest. The forest does not thank you. It doesn't need to. It simply breathes you back, as naturally as it breathes back the rain, the birdsong, the fireflies. You are part of the atmosphere. You always were, and the forest has always known your name, but it does not speak it in language. It speaks it in breath. The name it gives you is made of wind and water vapor, the scent of pine, the echo of lungs, slowing into sleep. The name it gives you is the sun has not yet risen. The light is blue, quiet. And beneath the forest floor, beneath your resting body, an entire world is already awake. It is not the roots that stir first, not the birds, not the leaves. It is the insects, the quiet architects of the forest. You imagine them now, moving through corridors beneath your spine, ants with dirt-caked mandibles, beetles inching along narrow crevices, tiny termites adjusting the tilt of a tunnel wall. Like engineers inspecting scaffolding, they are small, often ignored, but without them, the forest would collapse. These are the workers who do not wait for the sun. They dig, they carry, they build, and in doing so, they shape the very soil the trees depend on. Every tunnel they carve is a vein of breath, a gap that lets oxygen reach roots, lets water seep downward, lets nutrients find their way. Where a beetle turns, the roots may follow. Where ants pile loose soil, a seed might land. Where termites hollow, a pocket may open for future fungi. The forest is built not only by trees, but by these tiny, tireless hands. You see them now in your mind, not as pests, but as civilizers. They do not speak, but their movements are decisions. They do not rest, but their labor is rhythmic, almost meditative. Each mound of soil they push upward becomes a hill. Each chamber dug beneath a rotting log becomes a reservoir. Even their waste is sacred. Ant compost enriches the upper layers. Beetle droppings carry partially digested wood, releasing sugars too stubborn for roots to unlock alone. You once thought the forest grew despite these creatures. Now you understand, it grows because of them. They are not beneath notice. They are beneath everything. You turn slightly, your fingers brushing the forest floor, and imagine how many lives you're resting above. Thousands, millions, more than stars. They are not in competition with the trees. They are in coordination. Where tree roots expand, the insects open paths. Where insects dig, fungi find new space to colonize. And so beneath the leaf litter and pine needles, beneath the moss and fallen acorns, there is a quiet choreography. Ant colonies adjust when tree shade shifts. Beetles rewrote when roots push into their tunnels. Even mites sense when the pH of the soil changes, and they migrate accordingly, like tiny chemical cartographers. Each micro-decision matters. Each shift changes the whole. They do not understand the system. They are the system. Even their deaths become part of the rhythm. Their shells crack into calcium. Their legs return nitrogen. Their tunnels remain as passageways for water and breath. You begin to realize the forest does not start with trees. It starts with those who prepare the ground. Long before a seed touches soil, the soil has been worked, loosened, fertilized, made ready by creatures who will never see the trunk that rises from it. This too is a kind of faith, to prepare something you will not live to see. The ant never meets the oak, but it digs the space where the oak will root. The termite never shades beneath the tree, but it carves the airways that let roots breathe. Their work is not thankless, it is foundational. The forest does not forget them. It carries their contributions in every leaf. Even the shape of the forest floor, its dips and rises, its soft beds and sunken places, is a memory of insect movement. The earth holds their signatures, like braille for those who know how to read it. And now, so do you. You feel it differently. The dirt is not dirt anymore. It is architecture. It is neighborhood. It is alive. You are lying on the rooftops of underground cities. Homes built with no blueprint, but instinct. No tools but the body. No deadline but the slow beat of seasons. You wonder if they know how much depends on them. You wonder if they feel the weight above them, as comfort, as purpose. But perhaps knowing is not the point. Perhaps doing is enough, and as you lie there, you think of all the work inside you that happens without your knowing. Your cells repair, your blood cycles, your breath adjusts. You are your own system of hidden labor, and you too do not always see the fruits of your smallest efforts. But that doesn't make them meaningless. Sometimes, the most important things happen underground. In silence, in darkness, without credit. You think now of a single tunnel, dug last night by a nameless ant. It curves gently, it intersects with a fungal thread. Tomorrow, a root will follow its path, and from that root, a sprout, a season from now, a leaf, a year from now, a branch, and one day, a bird will perch there, its nest balanced in the fork of that same branch. And from that nest, song. All because of one tunnel, dug without recognition, dug in service to something larger. You close your eyes, you do not need applause to matter. You do not need to be visible, to belong. You do not need to bloom, to build something lasting. You are part of the system. And beneath you, 1,000 tiny workers continue shaping the future you do not yet see. You roll slightly, your palm brushing a smooth, round object in the forest floor. Tiny, unremarkable. A seed. It could be anything. An acorn, a pine nut, a fallen maple's child. You lift it to your eyes, turn it in your fingers, and wonder how something so small can carry something so enormous. Because inside that seed is an entire tree. Not just the shape, but the behavior, the memory, the instinct to grow toward light, to send roots downward, to bloom, to branch, to breathe. All of it, waiting. You hold it a little longer. It does not pulse. It does not speak, but something inside it feels aware, because the seed is not sleeping. It is listening, to temperature, to moisture, to light, to timing. It waits for the right moment, not by accident, but by programming. And this program is ancient, thousands of years old, passed down from a tree that passed it to another, that passed it to this one, in a lineage as long as language, older than the soil itself. The seed knows things you do not. It knows not to sprout in winter. It knows to resist opening until the coat softens. It knows to hold still when the ground is unstable. It has no eyes, no ears, but it listens better than we do. Inside, it carries a map of what it will become, and when it is patient. You imagine 100 seeds scattered across this patch of forest, some dropped by birds, some carried by wind, some pushed into the soil by passing deer. And they all wait, some for weeks, some for years, some for lifetimes, some will never sprout. And that's part of it too. Not every seed becomes a tree, some become food, some rot, some become part of another creature's body, another system's cycle, and even that is sacred. But for those that do awaken, it begins softly. The shell cracks, not with noise, but with pressure, with time. The root tip curls downward, as if bowing, and the first shoot rises like breath. The seed, once so closed, opens. It risks everything. It exposes its tenderness. It lets the world in, and from there, the becoming begins. You remember now, everything tall was once buried. Even the tallest cedar was once this small, this silent, this hidden. So were you. There is something powerful in remembering that the blueprint of something beautiful rarely looks beautiful at first, that growth begins in darkness, in waiting, in restraint. You look again at the seed in your hand. It has no urgency, no fear, no sense of inadequacy. It trusts, not in the world, but in itself. It knows that the instructions inside have been tested for generations. They will unfold when it is time. You think of all the seeds inside you, the ideas not yet spoken, the dreams not yet acted on, the parts of you that have not yet sprouted, and instead of pushing them, you breathe. You let them wait, like this one. You rest the seed back in the soil. You do not bury it, but you do not carry it away either. It belongs here, listening, becoming. You smile. The seed does not rush, so neither will you. Somewhere nearby, something is rotting. And in the forest, that is a beautiful thing. You shift your weight gently, not in disgust, but in curiosity, because here, decay is not repulsion. It is invitation. You turn your head and see it. A fallen log, half covered in moss, its bark curling like old paper, its wood soft with moisture, softened by time. At first glance it looks dead, broken, forgotten, but look closer, and you'll see it is more alive than a fungi bloom across its surface. Orange cups, pale threads, shelves of bracket mushrooms stacked like tiny stairways. Beetles crawl through its bark, moss spreads across its spine like velvet. Tiny shoots. Baby trees rise from its body, their roots reaching not into the soil, but into this, into rot, into memory. The fallen log has become a nursery. What once stood tall now lies horizontal, but not in failure, in function. It is not an ending, it is a turning. This is the circle of rot, and the forest honors it with reverence. Nothing here is wasted, nothing discarded. Even the most decayed thing is folded back into the system, tenderly, thoroughly. You reach out and touch the log. Your fingertips sink into the softened wood. It feels like sponge, like bread just before it crumbles. It feels warm, not with heat, but with presence. You are touching dozens of lives at once. Mycelium, bacteria, larvae, spores, roots, all nested within, each feeding, recycling, transforming. They do not mourn the log's fall. They receive it. They turn its carbon into food, its stiffness into softness, its structure into shelter. You see now, the rot is the richness. Without it, the forest would be shallow, the nutrients would never return, the soil would tire, the seeds would starve. Decay is what allows continuation, and you wonder, how did we come to fear it? To fear breaking down, to fear falling, to fear aging, softening, hollowing. The forest doesn't fear these things. It trusts them. It trusts that what breaks will become what holds, that what ends will become what feeds. There is no shame in rot. There is softness. And in that softness, rebirth. You close your eyes and remember all the parts of you that have fallen, the versions of yourself that broke, the beliefs that decayed, the hopes that crumbled in your hands. What if those weren't failures? What if they were compost? What if you have been feeding your future this whole time? Like the log, you did not disappear. You transformed. And now you are sheltering new growth. You haven't even seen yet. You smile, because rot, you realize, is how the forest forgives itself. It lets the old soften. It lets the broken return. It turns pain into passage. And always, always, something rises from the softened edge. A fern, a mushroom, a tree with roots inside another's bone. This is not poetic metaphor. This is how forests work. There are trees here whose entire lives began inside the ribs of a fallen trunk. They grew strong, not despite rot, but because of it. You open your eyes again and look at the log once more. It is beautiful now, not because it is perfect, but because it is part of everything. It is being carried, not in pieces, but in process. And you are allowed that too. You are allowed to fall, to be softened, to be remade, because in the circle of rot, nothing is wasted, not even you. You've been still for so long now, you can feel the earth beneath you, not just as ground, but as rhythm, and the forest feels your stillness too. You haven't spoken for hours, you haven't moved much either, but you are not idle. You are learning because here in this grove, stillness is not absence, it is intelligence. You look around at the trees that tower above you. They do not wander, they do not flee the cold, they do not chase the sun. They simply stay, and yet, in that staying, they survive storms, outlast droughts, build partnerships underground. Their silence is not passive, it is powerful. Their stillness is not inaction, it is strategy. Each leaf is angled by design. Each limb balances weight. Each root makes decisions. When to dig deeper, when to pull back, when to share, when to wait. No part of a tree is random. Even its stillness responds. When light changes, the tree adjusts. Not by running, by leaning, by reaching, by turning its silence toward the sun. Just a little more each day. You breathe deeply, realizing how much movement can live inside a still body. Perhaps the same is true for you. Stillness, after all, is not doing nothing. It is doing something differently. The tree does not need to prove its aliveness with noise. Its growth speaks for itself. Its branches hold birds. Its roots hold soil. Its shade cools the wind. It participates in the world by standing still within it. And you wonder, how often have you confused stillness with weakness? How many times have you rushed when you could have rooted? You feel the quiet wisdom of the trees settling into your spine. They do not rush to respond. They listen to the tilt of the sun, to the feel of rain, to the faint messages in the soil carried by threads thinner than hair. And when they respond, they do so with precision. A branch grown this way instead of that. A new leaf held open, just enough to breathe, not so much to burn. This is the kind of intelligence the forest knows best. An intelligence not of thoughts, but of response, not of speed, but of timing. Even in danger, trees choose carefully. They do not panic in drought. They close their pores, they redirect water, they shrink their leaves, they adapt. And when a limb is damaged, they seal it off, they let it go, not with sorrow, but with purpose. It is better to save the whole than cling to what is dying. Stillness can be sharp like that, decisive, clean, necessary. You feel the strength in your own stillness now, not as laziness, but as awareness. Stillness gives you space to feel before you move, to listen to root before you rise. You watch a leaf fall, it does not fight the wind. It simply lets go, and even in falling, it moves with grace. The tree did not cling to it. It knew when to release. Stillness is full of choices like that. Invisible ones, internal ones, and sometimes they are the most important ones. You think of your own life, the times you were told to keep moving, when what you needed was pause, to wait, to breathe, to listen to what had not yet found its words. The forest validates that. It reminds you that things do not bloom constantly, that rest is not retreat, that some of the strongest growth is slow, is quiet, is unseen, and that to be still is not to be stuck. It is to be present, fully, patiently. You lie back and let the forest surround you again. No bird song right now, no crack of branches, just the low, steady presence of trees who have stood here for longer than your lifetime. Not speaking, not hurrying, just being, and being well, in their way. They are thinking, and in your way, so are you. It begins with a crack in the sky. Far above your sleeping body, the clouds gather their language. Light, pressure, wind. The trees feel it before you do, not in fear, but in preparation. When the first bolt of lightning splits the sky, you jolt awake, not in terror, but in awe. You've never heard the forest this loud. Rain slashes through leaves. Wind pushes trunks until they groan like old ships. The soil floods, swells, shifts. The canopy shudders, but the forest does not break. It bends, because storms are not strangers here. They are teachers, and trees remember how to respond. You stay still, tucked beneath the roots of a wide cedar, safe, drenched in scent, wet bark, moss, crushed leaves, ozone, and beneath you, beneath the storm's noise, the root system awakens. The mycelium tightens its grip, redirecting flows of water, preserving communication lines, like an underground emergency system. It reroutes around damage. A tree that loses a limb still holds the ground. A sapling swept by water still feeds the fungi. Even the roots that tear, they release nutrients in their breaking. There is no panic in this, only response. The forest doesn't waste time resisting the storm. It receives it. It lets the wind take what is weak. It lets the water wash what needs moving. And then quietly, it begins again. Roots regrow. Connections rethread. The damaged are not discarded. They're fed. A broken branch becomes a bridge. A flooded root becomes home to a salamander. A fallen tree opens light for seedlings below. The storm does not destroy the forest. It reshapes it. You watch the rain blur the trunks. The lightning flash once more, then recede, and in its place, silence. A thicker, deeper silence than before. Not absence, but absorption. You breathe with the ground, and feel what it has just done. Absorbed chaos, and turned it into change. This is the forest's strength. Not resistance, but resilience. Not rigidity, but the ability to yield, and still remain whole. Roots break, and rewrote. Threads snap, and regrow. No part of the system is permanent. Only the pattern is. Even the oldest trees know this. You remember how people fear disruption. Storms in the body, storms in the mind. But here, the forest does not fear upheaval. It trusts in its ability to rebuild, to adapt, to bend without breaking its spirit. And you wonder, how might your own inner storms shift if you approached them like the forest? If you didn't resist the flood, but let it clean what needed clearing? If you didn't curse the broken root, but looked for what it might now feed? Perhaps healing doesn't always mean restoration. Perhaps it means rewriting, regrowing, allowing change to shape you without shame. The forest never looks at a split trunk and sees failure. It sees exposure, new texture, opportunity for moss, for nesting birds, for insects that only live in cracks. Every scar becomes part of the ecosystem. Every injury makes the whole more intricate, more alive. And so, as the storm passes, and the rain slows to a whisper, you lie back again, not afraid of what came, not mourning what bent. Grateful, because now, you understand, resilience is not silent suffering. It is fluid strategy. It is learning how to shift, and still stay connected, to feel the lightning, and still root yourself in the soil. You close your eyes. The thunder is far now. The forest sighs. The network hums softly beneath you again. It is already repairing, already adjusting, already whispering to every root. We are still here, and we still grow. You close your eyes, and for a moment, just a moment, you imagine what lies beneath. Not dirt, not darkness, but a map, not drawn in ink, but in threads. You are lying at the center of something vast, something invisible, something ancient. A map without edges, a web without waste, a system that isn't planned, but remembered. If your eyes could see through Earth, you'd see it glowing like a galaxy. Faint lights twinkling along root tips, paths pulsing with sugar and signal, tiny sparks where trees connect to fungi, and fungi to bacteria, and bacteria to everything else. It would not look like chaos. It would look like choreography. Every tree is a node, every root line is a road, and every connection a choice. Here, two roots meet. They linger, they trade, they move apart again. There, a fungal thread wraps around a root like a hand. Here, a new sapling signal is received and answered. No lines are wasted. No curve is random. This is the underground map of the forest, not drawn once and fixed, but grown, revised, rewritten, every day, each moment of drought, each signal of danger, each drop of rain. It is a living blueprint of life in motion, and it's all happening below. You imagine walking through it now, a subterranean explorer in a world without light. Every step is soft. Every wall breathes. Above, the trees stand quietly. But below, they stretch, shift, interact. The network isn't flat. It's layered, like cloud upon cloud of memory. Old root paths that no longer function, but still influence new growth. Buried threads of mycelium that hold the scent of past trees. Nutrient trails from generations ago that still guide the youngest shoots. Time doesn't pass the same down here. It loops, it echoes, it remembers. You run your hand gently along the forest floor, and though you can't see the map, you feel its texture. You begin to understand the forest doesn't need a single brain, because it has many, and they're all connected. One tree remembers the fire, another the flood, a third remembers where a disease once passed. Together, they store the forest's collective knowledge, not in books, but in roots. This map is not for control, it's for communication. The forest doesn't need hierarchy, it needs connection. When one part of the system thrives, when one part struggles, the others respond. It's not fairness, it's fitness. Because a forest where only the strong survive is a forest that doesn't last, but a forest that maps itself anew, in response to need, in response to change. That forest endures. Even now, your body rests on one of these roots. You don't know its direction or its destination, but beneath your spine, a thread is pulsing. You are on the path of a message. Maybe it's a sugar signal, maybe a warning, maybe a call for help, and it passes beneath you, as quietly as breath, not in panic, in purpose. You begin to realize, this is what real intelligence looks like. Not control over the system, but harmony within it. Not telling roots where to grow, but letting them choose, based on what they touch, what they sense, what they remember. And perhaps, that's what makes a forest so wise. Not that it has answers, but that it's always listening, always adapting, always mapping again. The network does not panic when a path is lost. It rewrotes. The map does not freeze when a tree falls. It redraws, and it never forgets where the lines used to be. Even silence leaves a trace. You press your hand more firmly to the ground. You feel it. This is not just soil, it's story, a biography written in moisture and minerals. every line drawn, not with power, but with attention. This map has no borders, no titles, no North Star, only motion, only memory, and that is enough. You breathe slowly, and the map breathes back. You open your eyes to a canopy filtered with gold. The storm is long gone now, and morning has returned. Soft, dappled, deliberate. Sunlight slips through branches like water through a sieve. It dances on your skin, and then it disappears. Not all at once, but in flickers the trees are speaking again. Not through root, not through scent, but through shadow. You begin to notice light does not fall freely in a forest. It is shaped, bent, directed. And the trees are the ones directing it. Some leaves hold it close, like a secret. Others let it pass, casting intricate patterns on the forest floor below. You watch a beam land on a sapling, just one shaft, enough to warm its smallest leaves, and then, slowly, the branch above shifts with the breeze, and the light vanishes. A message sent, a message withdrawn. This is the language of light and shadow, not spoken aloud, but cast in silhouette. Trees decide how much light to keep, how much to share, how much to block. The shape of their crown, the angle of their branches, the tilt of each leaf, all of it matters. It changes the map of who survives below. A sapling beneath a generous tree might thrive. One beneath a greedy tree might wither. And yet, the forest does not punish. It balances, over time. Branches die back, canopies thin, openings appear, light shifts again, and the floor blooms. You begin to see this dance everywhere. Patches of brightness, like pools of permission, cool shadows, like quiet boundaries. The trees are not just growing, they are communicating with shape, with angle, with restraint, each one learning not only how to rise, but how to allow others to rise too. And it's not always perfect. Some trees hoard the sun, others sacrifice growth to let their offspring catch light. Some cast long shadows that starve their neighbors, others form lattices that break the heat. So the forest below doesn't burn. Every shadow carries intention, even if it's subtle, even if it's selfish. And as you lie there, you realize you've cast shadows too, with your words, your presence, your silences. Sometimes you let others grow. Sometimes you blocked the light without knowing. But the forest does not blame you. It shows you there is always another season, another angle, another way to shift your crown and let more light through. It reminds you that generosity is not always loud. Sometimes it's just the act of making room. You look up again. The leaves above you are not solid. They are laced with openings. The light that reaches you has passed through 100 choices to get here. And still, it found you. You feel warmed by that, not just in body, in spirit. The tree above you could have taken more, but it didn't. It let something pass, and you receive it with quiet thanks. You close your eyes again, not because you're tired, but because the light behind your eyelids feels like kindness. And in that kindness, you begin to wonder, how might you move differently if you thought of every action as the casting of a shadow? Where does your light fall? Who grows because of it? Who fades? You do not need to be perfect. Neither do the trees, but you can become aware. You can adjust. The way a branch moves, the way a leaf leans, little by little, you can learn how to let more through. The forest teaches by example. And this morning, the message is clear. You do not need to shine for everyone. Just make space. The rest will follow. You once thought you were a visitor here, a guest maybe, an outsider walking carefully on soil that didn't belong to you, an observer of something older, deeper, wilder, than your body could ever claim. But the longer you stay, the more still you become, the more softly you breathe. You realize something else. You were never separate. You were always part of the forest. Even before you came here, even before you knew what mycelium meant, or what secrets a seed holds, or how roots make decisions without ever moving. You were made from the same pieces, the same minerals, the same breath. Your bones carry the calcium of crushed shells, the iron of ancient stones. Your blood remembers salt water. Your lungs echo the shape of leaves. The forest is not a place outside of you. It is something your body recognizes, a kind of home it never forgot, even when your mind did. You lie there now, still and quiet beneath the canopy, and listen, not for bird calls, or wind, or the rustling of animals. You listen for the feeling that you belong here, and it comes, not as a shout, not even as a word, but as a sense that you are understood. You don't need to explain yourself. The trees aren't asking what you've done. The moss isn't judging your failures. The soil isn't keeping score. The forest sees you as what you are, a being made of cycles, of breath and blood, of stillness and storms, of roots and letting go. You've cast shadows. You've bent in wind. You've broken and regrown. You've held silence when words would have harmed. You've reached even when you were afraid of the light. And in that, you have been exactly like every tree that surrounds you. Not perfect, not always graceful, but present, alive, trying. And now, you feel your body as part of the forest's map, not above it, not outside it, but inside. Your pulse is a drumbeat of soil, your breath a thread through canopy and cloud. The roots beneath you no longer feel distant. They feel familiar, like they've known you all along. You open your hands, let the earth fill your palms, let the moss brush your fingertips, and in that touch, you hear the message you've been waiting for. Welcome back. Not because you did anything special, not because you earned it, but because you finally stopped long enough to hear it. You finally slowed down to forest speed. You let the forest speak in its native language. Slowness, stillness, silence, and in return, it gave you something back. A reminder that you were never lost. You were just away for a while, but your body always knew. It remembered the scent of pine, the comfort of dappled light, the rhythm of breath matched to wind. You smile now, eyes still closed, and feel something rise within you. Not adrenaline, not ambition, but peace, and more than that, kinship. You are not here to conquer the wild. You are here because you are wild too, not in chaos, but in quiet instinct. Your emotions root like saplings. Your thoughts branch outward. Your hopes turn their faces toward the sun. You are built from the same instructions that guide the forest, and you are free to live like it, to move with intention, to grow when it's time, to rest when it's not, to listen, to share, to bend without breaking. You breathe in one last time, deep, slow, grateful. The forest fills your lungs. You exhale, and the forest breathes you back. Not because it needs you, but because it includes you, because you were always one of its own.